That rally was supposed to happen here at the airport in Sanford tonight with an estimated crowd size of about 15 to 20,000 people. This is Cayley Square Park. You can see they have the whole thing blocked off, and that scene we initially came from is all the way across. He could get anywhere from 13 to 30 years in this case that's now had him in the court system and the spotlight for about 9 years.
What everyone wants to know is how the rides are going to work. So when you come in, there will be team members waiting to put hand sanitizer on your hands and give you those goggles. And then on the ride itself, they're only seating people with the party that they came with.
Dozens of candles, flowers, balloons, and stuffed animals too. At this same intersection back in January, there was a crash that killed a woman. We're getting an idea from what we're seeing of just how strong this storm was. This tree right here, for instance, it's completely uprooted. This whole portion that's redacted, this is the part where deputies are interviewing him about what exactly it was that happened. This almost entire front of this plaza is covered in plywood, and they've even taken it a step further. If your commute takes you through any school zones, through any active construction zones, or any designated school crossing areas, just be aware you can't have this behind the wheel anymore.
I'm a little more bundled up than they are because I'm not doing that. Maybe someday, not today, but we're right at the finish line.
So much is the same at Universal Orlando now that the parks are finally open again to the general public, and yet so much is different. We put on our masks and went through the temperature screening to show you from inside what you can expect.
So what everyone wants to know is how the rides are going to work. So when you come in, there will be team members waiting to put hand sanitizer on your hands and give you those goggles. And then on the ride itself, they're only seating people with the party that they came with and putting empty rows between groups of guests.
Virtual lines will be offered as needed for some rides, but not across the board. Along with spacing people out, masks are now mandatory. We saw all but a few people complying.
I'm surprised that everyone's not complaining.
Yeah.
That everyone's actually following the rules, because I expected to see people arguing.
Or not wearing the mask.
No parades for the time being, but you will see some standalone entertainment spots like this. Performers will have masks unless they're singing or playing an instrument, and then they'll be spread out. You can still take selfies with the characters, but only from a distance.
Spacing is also a big factor in the dining experience. When you walk in, you'll first see a hand sanitizing station. And then when you go to the line to order, you can see they have those markings on the ground to show specifically where people are supposed to be standing. And at the tables themselves, they have a lot of them blocked off with these reserved signs just to cut down on how many people are dining in.
Indoor theaters won't be open for now, but shows like Shrek that technically count as rides will be.
It's definitely different from when we're used to flying through everything because we know the park so well, but we're just taking our time, and everyone's been pretty good.
Universal has not said how long they expect to keep these protocols in place. At Universal Orlando, Hadas Brown, WESH 2 News. If you live in the U.S., chances are you get calls like this.
Without a warranty, you are still eligible to reactivate warranty coverage.
In June of 2019, the FCC voted to give wireless carriers the ability to block unwanted robocalls automatically so your phone won't even ring. Months later, in December, the Traced Act became law, raising fines on robocallers up to $10,000 per call. It's been more than a year since these measures passed, but still.
How many robocalls would you say you get per day?
A day? Probably 10, 15.
How many robocalls about do you get per day?
25 to 30.
Anything that you put out on the internet right now, is being sold to the highest bidder.
Chris Carter is the CEO of AppRoyo, a company that helps other businesses with their cybersecurity and other software. He says because of these crackdowns in the U.S., the calls are now coming in from overseas. Carter also believes it's partially our fault that these scammers even have our information.
Know in advance, if you put your phone number into any third-party website, it's going to go onto a list that's being sold.
The number you are calling is using RoboKiller.
According to call blocking app RoboKiller, from January 1st to February 4th of this year, our area received 64 million spam calls. You may be wondering, what happens if I engage with one? The FTC tells me even picking up and speaking could signal that your phone number is a live number and get you more calls. But
The real risk is interacting with them, certainly giving them any kind of personal information, account information. The less you deal with them, the better.
Apps like RoboKiller and NomoRobo can reduce the number of unwanted calls you receive. But fair warning, some have reported the apps stopped some calls they did want to get. You can also sign up for the Florida Do Not Call Registry as well as the National Do Not Call Registry. Signing up for those means that most telemarketers legally are not allowed to call you. But when it comes to scammers, they don't care much about the law, so the calls from them keep coming. Some states have enacted laws of their own to try to fix this. Here in Florida, there are laws on the books that govern the do not call list and ban misrepresenting who you are by faking your caller ID. The Attorney General's office tells me they have joined lawsuits involving robocalls, and a spokesperson for the Division of Consumer Services says they monitor do not call complaints.
We review each and every complaint that comes in. We track the information that's submitted. We run reports looking for trends.
Both offices also say they pushed the federal government for those stricter laws. So could finding robocall relief come down to a waiting game at this point? Carter believes that is the case.
What the Biden administration has told us is that they will cease and desist all robocall activities, in any company in any country that performs those types of activities could be subject to fines and or punishment. I think in the next 6 months, you're going to see a decline happening.
In the meantime, reach out to your cell phone service provider. They may have their own measures in place now to help you start blocking those calls. If you receive a suspicious call, don't give any identifying information over the phone. But truly, your best defense, don't pick up. Hadas Brown reporting, WESH 2 News. The sounds of a busy florist the day before Valentine's Day seem to be one thing the pandemic can't change.
It has been truly a madness here.
Yeah,
it's been
but a beautiful
super,
madness.
Yeah, beautiful madness. Beautiful and romantic madness.
The past year brought so many hardships for small businesses.
In the first couple months, March and April, we were struggling, just like everybody else.
John Kubelinski of In Bloom Florist says after that, things started to turn around.
A lot of people couldn't visit anybody, so the option was to send flowers. So we actually saw our delivery business increase. Our event business was down, our walk-in traffic was down, but our deliveries were up.
Just a few blocks away, Le Bouquet says they experienced the same. Their concerns ultimately unfounded, as those unable to give love in person chose to send it.
When pandemic started, when the isolation began, we were very nervous and upset that we didn't know what to do. We have so many people working here. We didn't know how to pay salaries and everything. But then 1 week was kind of quiet. And right after that, it started to pick up. So basically, we grew 3 times more during pandemic.
Things do look a little different. Here inside In Bloom Florist, you'll notice everyone wearing a mask. They limited the number of customers that could be inside at one time. And the vibe going into the holiday, not exactly what it usually would be.
We enjoy people coming in. I mean, we've had tubs of beer here and wine for people, during the holidays, so they can come in and relax. So we do miss that a little bit.
Hopes high that by next Valentine's Day, the need for so many precautions will be all wrapped up. Reporting in Orlando, Hadas Brown, WESH 2 News.